Well, good morning, everyone. This morning, I am speaking on our search for meaning, our search for meaning, because I want to explore how we as humans need to find meaning in our lives to be happy, just how essential it is to feel that our life is meaningful, to feel that there is meaning and purpose in our living. I was reading an article yesterday by a psychologist, John Duffy, and he wrote that many of his clients have been telling him during this past year and recently that they feel like they've not just hit a pandemic wall of fatigue and anxiety, but that they've been feeling an existential crisis regarding the meaning of their lives. And he suggested that we learn from what we've been drawn to over this past year, over this course of this year, and what we've missed. And that we use that, what we've been drawn to and what we've missed, we use that to decide what we want to experience going forward in the coming year. Um, it is so essential that our experience feels meaningful and that our life feels meaningful. I have a friend who is an artist. Some of you know him. And he recently posted one of his pieces of work on Facebook. And it was a picture of himself, a self portrait. And there was a caption that said, "Time is running out." And, obviously, I know this person and this piece of art is meant to provoke feeling, and thought, as all great art is meant to do. And the feeling, the meaning that I gleaned from it was that he felt time was running out, that he felt that life was precious and short. And I thought, well, if it is so, if it's precious and short, and if time is running out, what to do? And I actually responded. I wrote a response saying what to do. Live each moment deeply. Live each moment deeply, and do what you really love. Thich Nhat Hanh would say, make each moment an occasion to live deeply, happily, and in peace. Make each moment an occasion to live deeply, happily, and in peace. And be fully here. Be present in this moment and make the most of the time that we have. So let me read a poem from Mary Oliver, imploring us to live deeply. She writes, "I know you never intended to be in this world, but you're in it all the same. So why not get started immediately? I mean, belonging to it. There is so much to admire, to weep over, and to write music or poems about. Bless the feet that take you to and fro. Bless the eyes and the listening ears. Bless the tongue, the marvel of taste. Bless touching. You could live 100 years, it's happened, or not. I am speaking from the fortunate platform of many years, none of which I think I ever wasted. Do you need a prod? Do you need a little darkness to get you going? Let me be as urgent as a knife, then, and remind you of Keats, so single of purpose, and thinking for a while he had a lifetime. She's reminding us, of course, in that last paragraph of John Keats. John Keats was another famous poet who died of tuberculosis at 25, just 25 years old. And his time obviously ran out too soon. So Mary Oliver is urging us to live deeply, to admire life, to be filled with wonder, to feel we belong to life, and to find meaning in our own unique life that is unlike anyone else's. Viktor Frankl, who survived a Nazi death camp for 3 years, he said, the meaning of life is to give life meaning. I love that. I've been thinking of that a lot. The meaning of life is to give life meaning. And it's so essential for us to feel that what we do has meaning, that what we go through has meaning. We are the only creatures in creation that want to understand where we came from. We want to understand, why am I here? What is the reason for my life? What is our purpose for living? And meaning and purpose are a little different, meaning and purpose, but they go together. And we can think of meaning as the value that we place on life and experience. And we can think of purpose as more of an aim or a goal, but they're kind of like hand in glove. They really go together. So we thrive when we feel that we have both meaning and purpose in our life. And we suffer when we don't feel there is meaning to our existence. Think about it. Our house burns down and we search for meaning in it. What can we take away from going through that? We face a life-threatening illness and we search for meaning in it. We self-isolate for a year due to this pandemic, and we'll spend years exploring the meaning of this unique experience, and it will be unique to each of us. We have relationships and we look to see, what is the meaning of us coming together in this relationship? Why did we come together? How is it meaningful to us? There's a beautiful quote from Khalil Gibran that says, your living is determined not so much by what life brings to you as by the attitude you bring to life. Not so much by what happens to you as by the way your mind looks at what happens. In my experience of losing my home in the campfire, I realize it's unique, that my experience of that has a meaning for me that it may not have for anyone else. It's different from the other people that I know that lost their homes. One person might look at losing their home in the campfire as an ongoing experience of grief that's just taking them to really deep places. Another person might at this point be feeling gratitude in their own personal experience of it because they weren't that attached to the place they lived, and they received, insurance money to do some other things in life that they really wanted to do. So we can have a similar experience, but what it means to each of us, how it has meaning to our life, is ours to find. Viktor Frankl says the meaning of life differs from person to person, from day to day, and from hour to hour. So what really matters, more so than the meaning of life in general, is the meaning of your life at any given moment. Remember that movie, Forrest Gump? It's one of my favorite movies, and Forrest was such a beloved character, and he was beloved. His character was beloved because he was so present with life, and he really lived deeply in each moment. And his character was teaching everyone around him how to live deeply in each moment and be present. And he just had this way of seeing things clearly and expressing wisdom in a very simple way, but a profound way. Do you remember that scene when he's sitting on the bench? He's waiting for a bus, and this woman is sitting beside him, and he's telling her his life story. And at one point, he offers her a chocolate out of his box of chocolates, and he says, "My mom always said life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get, right?" It's such a good metaphor, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. I like it when I get caramel, the chewy caramel, and I don't like it when I get that fake creamy strawberry flavor. But we never know. We never know what life is going to bring us, and we don't have a lot of control over that. But our choice lies in how we experience and value and assign meaning to what happens. Part of the charm of Forrest Gump was he was so eternally optimistic, to the point that it kind of drove people around him crazy that were pessimists. Optimists tend to look for meaning in adversity, and that quality makes them more resilient in life. So this week, I've taken a deep dive into Viktor Frankl's powerful book, Man's Search for Meaning. I highly recommend it. It's kind of intense, the first half of the book, but it's actually incredibly inspiring. You know, Frankel, as you may know, he was a prominent Jewish psychiatrist and a neurologist in Vienna. And in September 1942, he was arrested and transported to a Nazi concentration camp with his wife and his parents. And 3 years, 3 incredibly long years later, when his camp was liberated, you know, most of his family, including his pregnant wife, had perished. But he, prisoner number 119,104, he lived, he survived. And he wrote that book, Man's Search for Meaning, in 9 days, not long after he got out of those camps. And the essence of the book, you know, is his conclusion that the difference between those who had lived and those who had died came down to one thing: meaning, finding meaning, having a reason to keep living. He famously wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, the choice to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way." Frankel felt he survived because he found meaning in the suffering that he went through. He created something a while after he got out called logotherapy. You know, and logos is from the Greek word that means meaning, meaning therapy. And it's fascinating that logos is also defined as the word of God or the principle of divine reason. So it's therapy to find reason, to find the reason, to find the divine reason in whatever we experience in life. In all the counseling I've done over the years, I see when people don't feel they have meaning and purpose in their life, they tend towards depression. You know, Frankel wrote that there were 3 possible sources for meaning. He said one of the sources for meaning is in work, doing something significant, being of service in our work. The second one was in love, was in caring for another person, loving, also loving source, loving life, being love in action. And then the third thing was finding meaning in courage during difficult times. In other words, finding meaning in the challenges we go through. Frankel often quoted one of his favorite sayings from Friedrich Nietzsche, who said, "He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how." I've been meditating on that all week. He who has a why to live for can bear almost anyhow. We need a why. Why get up in the morning? Why heal yourself when you have a life-threatening illness? If we have a why, we will figure out how to keep going. So Frankel tells a lot of stories, of course, in his book, but he tells this one story about how one day in the camps, he felt his will waning and his attitude and his outlook became negative, and which was basically a death sentence in the situation he was in. And on that day, he had to march to the work site, as he did pretty much every day, and he had on these terrible shoes, and he had these terrible sores on his feet from wearing these torn up shoes and no socks, and it was bitterly cold and windy. And as he walked, he was absorbed thinking of these endless little problems of his miserable existence, his miserable life. And he was thinking, what will there be to eat tonight? You know, if there's a piece of sausage that comes as an extra ration, should I exchange it for a piece of bread? You know, you have to remember they're all starving. You know, should I trade my last cigarette for a bowl of soup? How can I get a piece of wire to tie my broken shoe back together? And he became disgusted with this trivial train of thoughts, you know, and his state of affairs. And being a man, you know, who was a doctor, a psychiatrist, a writer, a philosopher, and here he was thinking in such a pathetic way. So he forced his thoughts to turn to another subject. And suddenly he saw himself standing on a platform of a well-lit, warm, and pleasant lecture hall. And in front of him, he saw an attentive audience on comfortable, upholstered seats. And he was giving a lecture on the psychology of the concentration camp. And in that moment, he somehow rose above the situation and the suffering, and he observed them as if they were already of the past. And so it was this faith in the future, this vision, this choice to change his mind that he attributes to his survival. And, throughout the book, he had many moments like this, changing his mind, and it reminds me of the scripture from St. Paul. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Watch your mind and change the way you think when you veer into dark places. Joe Dispenza always says to change is to think and act greater than our present circumstances. To change is to think and act greater than our present circumstances. And intuitively, Viktor Frankl knew this. He knew to interrupt that program of hopelessness and redirect himself to new thoughts, to a new attitude. And isn't it interesting that, in this movement of unity, we're part of a movement called New Thought. New Thought. Have a new thought. Redirect your thoughts. I find that so interesting. But Frankel used denial. He used denying the power of defeating thoughts. And he used affirmation, affirming that he would survive, and he would give lectures, and he would write books on what he had experienced. And I, for one, am so grateful that he wrote of his experience, because so many people who at times struggle to find hope, to find meaning, they read about his experience and they realize, hey, if he could do that in those unimaginably difficult circumstances, I can do that. Frankel said, life does not mean something vague, but something very real and concrete. And he said that no man or woman in their destiny can be compared with any other man or woman in their destiny. He said, no situation repeats itself, and each situation calls for a different response. And I find that really beautiful, that how each one of us lives life is absolutely unique. How we make meaning of it is absolutely unique. To me, this is how God is ever expanding, through each one of our lives and the unique way that we live it. We were talking about snow earlier, and I know you guys had some snow last week. I saw some pictures, amazing. We got a foot in this last week, and we're getting another foot tonight. But it's pretty amazing to me to contemplate how not a single snowflake is alike. I looked it up, and the scientific consensus states that the likelihood of two large snow crystals being identical is 0. They're all unique. So I want to share a story with you that I heard from Jack Kornfield, describing the significance of a snowflake. Not too long ago, in a place not too far away, a field mouse asked a wise old owl, "What is the weight of a snowflake?" "Why, nothing more than nothing," answered the owl. And the mouse went on to tell the owl about a time that he was resting on a branch in a fir tree, counting each snowflake as it fell until the number was exactly 3,471,952. Then, with the settling of the very next flake, crack, the branch suddenly snapped, tumbling the mouse and the snow to the ground. Such was the weight of nothing, said the mouse. I love that story. And the moral of that story is that the next time that you think your efforts or your contributions or your gifts of love or your talents are nothing, or that they're small in comparison to those of others, remember that one small word of encouragement, one simple act of kindness can make all the difference. Can make all the difference. It can give you or someone in your life a reason to live. We give life meaning through our love, through our presence, through our simple acts of kindness, through our simple gestures every moment of every day, through our good works. So, in closing, I just invite you to contemplate what has meaning in your life. What is the why? Why do I live this day? You know, why do I get up this morning? Maybe it's being a parent and grandparent and holding a space of unconditional love for your children and grandchildren. You know, that is a beautiful purpose. Maybe it's offering inspiration through writing a book or giving talks or serving as a platform hostess or a prayer chaplain. Maybe it's taking care of your elderly mom. Maybe it's growing food to make yourself and others happy with the gifts from your garden. The Dalai Lama says, we're just visitors on this planet, here for 90 or 100 years at the most. We must try to do something good, something useful with our lives. If you contribute to other people's happiness, you will find the true goal, the true meaning of life. May we all live deeply each moment. May we find meaning. May we love more. And may we bring each other happiness. May it be so. So be it. Thank you.